the folks who are going to be electing the school committee will be grappling with that issue.
Sure.
Whether or not the state finds a way around that or not. And so I guess what I'd really like to hear is some specific plan on, let's assume it's going to stay the way it is now. What do we do with those kids who aren't successful in that?
Well, to be specific, if for the kids who are successful in the MCAS test, we should provide programs to support them. So it does enable them to pass. So that means we hire tutors through foundations. This is not just coming out of the pockets of the people in this town. There are many, many foundations, including one of my own, that provides tutors for kids with learning disabilities or with impediments of any type. So I feel strongly that this town is obligated to support those kids who may not pass MCAS through extra efforts. Now, again, my understanding is that you are able to retake the test several times. So obviously, if you fail the first time or even the second time, that those resources are immediately available to help those kids. And I believe that we can obtain resources outside the town, not just through the tax dollars, to support that. So that's what I would envision that we would do.
All right, thank you. Amy, do you have another email question?
Yes. With the demand for teachers outstripping the supply, how is North Reading going to attract and keep quality instructors and maintain the high level of education we enjoy today?
Well, we have a great town, so I mean, I imagine a lot of people want to join us. You know, we do have a community. We have several thousand people who are very passionate about this community, and I think that's a very attractive environment for teachers to join. We have lots of parents, my wife and myself, and lots of friends of ours who are actively involved in the school systems. And I think for any professional, that's extremely attractive, that we care that much about our kids, about the quality of the school system we have. Again, the results prove themselves that we have been successful in that. So like a business, you know, you create a positive work environment. You make them feel like they're accomplishing, that they're supported. So my perception is that we will easily attract teachers for this town. Because teachers will see and have seen that this town is involved in our school systems, support our school systems, and therefore be able to get additional people. So I feel that even though you hear quite a bit about that, that'll be less of an issue for North Reading because we have a great community.
Can I push you on that?
Please do.
Since I work in career services, our schedules for very desirable towns have not been filled in meaning that our education students are not applying for the interviews for such towns, some very desirable towns as well. The towns don't always sell themselves. Do you think that North Reading needs to have some sort of plan or needs to be a little bit more proactive in terms of keeping a stream of qualified candidates and applying to the school system?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we need to, I mean, I'm saying how my enthusiasm in this town and in the support this town has provided to the schools, you know, for the parents have provided to the schools. Certainly we need to vocalize that and, you know, and market that to a certain extent. Let people know that there is, through very specific improvements we have made. You know, again, look at the libraries, look at the school improvements we have made, look at the achievements in the town. So there is a marketing element of this that we have to kind of go out there and brag about the good things this town has done. So it won't be something, again, I'm not aware of specifics of other towns, but from my understanding, they kind of expect, put an ad in the newspaper to have this inflow of lots of resumes. It's more than that. It's really to take pride in the town and talk about the town's positive environment. And so it does require a plan. It does require us to do some marketing to attract high-quality teachers.
Thank you. We're running short on time, so one of the questions that didn't come out, and I'm going to kind of put you on the spot and ask you to address this in your close, is the O word. We successfully avoided an override for the budget this year, but the school committee and the school department had to make some rather significant cuts, in their opinion, on what they had wanted versus what they were going to get. Next year is going to be equally as difficult, if not more, due to needs that the town has in other places. So I'm wondering, again, if elected, you'll be a member of that board, that committee, and making those decisions. What are you going to come before the people and say when it comes time for either deciding override or deciding cuts?
Well, certainly, Thank you for the question, and a few responses to that. My hope next year that, we are strategic in what we focus on making investment in. One of the things that I communicated previously was classroom size, is a concern of mine. Is keeping the classroom size at a reasonable level, staying below the kind of state averages, but in the low 20s. But you think you get 22, 23 or more students in a classroom, that becomes an impediment for high quality education. So we intend to be very strategic in what kind of investments, and I go back to what I've said previously about having taken the next step up. Also, I think we need to be much more aggressive about obtaining or looking for grant programs, whether through the state or through federal or through private. One of my experiences in the involvement I'm in today is working with both national, state, and private educational foundations. And I think there is an opportunity for this town to take advantage of those foundations, whether it be with physical equipment, whether it be people resources, or just monies. And I think we need to be much more aggressive in obtaining that and looking for that. And that's one of the things I would bring to the table is contacts and sources to bring that. I expect as a community, if we need to reach an override community, that we communicate it effectively. I mean, one of the challenges we've had as a community is kind of effective communication. There's been obviously confusion. There's been some issues with people's views of certain things. I think that we need to look at more of a consensus that if the override is required, that people understand what the override is for, what's the rationale behind it, and other alternatives we looked at doing before override was reached. So there is a marketing component to this. There is a kind of communication component to this that does require a significant amount of effort. But again, my hope is that through external resources, that we could at least bridge the gap significantly. So if overrides required, that is a fairly small override. It's not a significant one. That's my hope next year.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate you coming to talk to us, and that's going to close out our interview with Mr. Stephen Vanbeaver. We're going to take a short break, and then Mr. John Wiese is going to come in and give us a chance to ask him questions in the candidates Q&A. So we'll see you in a few minutes. Thank you. So no more dominoes.
What? No, we're good. I think they got their.
Okay, welcome back. This is the Citizens Action Committee Candidates Q&A, basically a job interview with the candidates who are running for the May 8th election. In this case, we're interviewing the candidates for school committee. This morning, we interviewed the candidates for Board of Selectmen. And the format here is one that allows the public to ask questions of the candidate and the candidate to give straightforward answers. The Citizens Action Committee, in preparing for this, sent the candidates a candidate's profile. And in that profile, we had addressed 6 specific issues that we thought, as a town and as public voters, were issues we'd like to hear the school committee candidates address. Those 6 issues were the space crisis for the elementary, middle, and high schools, school department budget, user fees, contract negotiations, MCAS, and the current leadership, the role and the way that the school committee currently is run and how that might change if they were on it. Those profiles were sent to every candidate running for the May 8th ballot. We've received 3 of those back. We received one from Mr. Stephen Vanbeaver, who was here previously, Mr. John Wiese, and Ms. Maureen Vacca. We have not received one from Mr. Schuler. And just a couple of notes, because I'm making this every time. The Citizens Action Committee is a group that handles town issues. We want to be involved in all town issues. And so to that end, our mission statement is to provide an open forum for discussion of town issues, such as this. introduce and support the resolution of those town issues, and as a primary mission, the advocacy and promotion of ongoing community and citizen involvement. So getting people involved in the election of their town officials in an event like this, in town meeting, in town committees, and showing up, not necessarily being a member of a committee, but showing up and having your issues heard and your voice heard, and if nothing else, I think show those folks are awake, because sometimes they're not. Initiatives, things that we feel are important, town budgets, keeping the town budget within revenue projections, town meeting participation, getting people to come to town meeting and participate and have their voice heard, voter registration, you gotta do that to have your voice heard and be able to vote on May 8th, and solution to town space needs, both for the schools, the police department, and the DPW. This event is a specific forum for getting those questions out. There is another event, and I want to make sure that we get that information out. The League of Women Voters holds a candidates night. That'll be on April 24th at 7:30 p.m. and that's in the large group room at the middle school. That's a little bit different. Normally, in previous years they've had it here. They're holding it in the large group room because we're hoping that they're going to have a very large turnout. We encourage everyone to attend that event. All candidates will be at that event, and it's your chance to hear and see all candidates, not just school committee and board of selectmen, but candidates in the uncontested races as well. A couple of other issues to take out in this particular forum. The candidates, there are 4 of them only for Peter Papafusilio has withdrawn his candidacy and is no longer on the ballot, which I thought it would have been interesting, so I'm a little disappointed to hear that happen. Also, as was stated by someone who was a little concerned about this event, I do want to make it clear that the Citizens Action Committee has endorsed the Swan Pond ballot issue, so we are not unbiased when it comes to that particular issue, and we will be supporting Swan Pond. However, school committee is not just about Swan Pond and space issues, it's about many other issues, and those issues will be coming up in our interviews with the candidates, and so we encourage everyone to view that. In addition, just so you know, if you missed this morning's events, this candidates Q&A will be replayed on Sundays and Tuesdays at 8 p.m. and Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 10 a.m. And I think with that, I've taken care of all my business, so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. John Wiese. I'm getting it wrong now. I apologize. I've been saying it wrong, and he's corrected me, and I'm still getting it wrong. So I will let you have your opening, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you all for allowing me the time to explain why I've decided to run for the school committee. First, a bit about myself. I'm originally from Wisconsin. I spent 22 years in the United States Navy Seabees, where I retired a disabled veteran in April 1990. I married Christine McNeil, who was a graduate of North Reading High School, June 9th of 1979. In and out being in the military, I've resided at other places, such as the last being Chesapeake, Virginia, which has 8 high schools in that town. We reside at 17 Old Andover Road, North Reading, with 2 of our children, Chris, a 16-year-old junior, and Danielle, a 15-year-old freshman, both who attend North Reading High School. My 3rd son resides in Alabama and is a professor at the University of Alabama. I presently work for Habitat Incorporated here in North Reading. There are numerous items of concern to me about the school system, but my platform has decided to run on 2 major ones. The number one concern I have is the safety of our children in school. The present school committee and administration has done an admirable job in the performance of its students, such as 86% go on to further their education, which is very high, and I applaud them for that. Did they or can they go further? I believe they can. The further part of it is the lower 5% that I have the difficult time. These kids have a very hard time for the rigorous ventures of academic studies and peer pressure. We have seen news about schools having shooters. The lower 2% commits this, in my opinion. Why? Because the school system would rather ignore these young adults that cannot conform to the system rather than help these kids adapt to life itself. Policies need to be made to help the students cope with real life so that they will feel needed, wanted, and accepted by their fellow students the school, and the community. Policy changes can be made at no expense to the taxpayers